Hey, what's up? I'm Guy.
I'm John.
YouTube channel, it's ours. Subscribe to it and like this video.
Also, check out our podcast below in the description.
Time to talk about Marcus Mariota and the Raiders. We talked about this on the last podcast because the league was texting you. People in the league were texting you about the quote with Jon Gruden salivating, it sounded like, over Marcus Mariota. Now,
I think he said he had a dazzling day.
Dazzling day.
Yeah.
Vic Tafer wrote this. This one comes with a bow on it for the aggregators. Not us, because we did not say this means Marcus is about to start. After Gruden said Marcus Mariota was dazzling Friday, there you go, he wrote this. Mariota looks a little stiff throwing the ball. Gruden mentioned how he was back from an elbow injury, but Mariota doesn't look comfortable and isn't getting the ball out very smoothly. He's had some nice runs that got Gruden excited, but the short throws aren't very pretty, while the longer ones have been hit and miss. Someone who watched Mariota with the Titans told me he was never a great practice player in Nashville, but still. Carr, meanwhile, always looks good in training camp, and he has been sharp. I know we're only 5 days of helmeted practices in, but I don't see any indication that Mariota will be pushing Carr anytime soon. Now, you and I have talked about this for a long time. I've said from the beginning, camp or no camp, Mariota's not beating Derek out. I think Derek's better, and he's got the advantage. When we talked about this on the last podcast, though, I don't think when we reacted to that dazzling quote, it wasn't about Mariota beating Derek out, right? It was more about there's no preseason. At some point, Gruden's going to want to see this guy in some way. It doesn't mean he's starting a game. But even after reading that, John, I still think Mariota's going to get on the field pretty early. Gruden's going to want to see him, especially if the rep on him is he's not a great practice player, but in the games, live bullets, that's when you get his best.
Well, I think, for example, you look at the 49ers. There is no chance any other quarterback comes into the game but Jimmy Garoppolo, right, week one. They might have, like, direct snaps to George Kittle or something, but Jimmy Garoppolo is the only
Brandon
quarterback.
Ayuk.
Yeah, exactly. Russell Wilson, the only quarterback. Like, you just go through the teams. This guy's playing week one. Like, I think it's a lock he's getting snaps. Even if it might just turn out to be a couple quarterback runs. Or, like we talked about in the last one, maybe like a rollout pass. It's something that drives people, I think, with the Saints a little crazy. I get it if you're bringing Taysom Hill to just give a direct snap to run the Wildcat, but they bring him in sometime to pass.
Right.
It's always the argument of, like, he passed Steve Young, I think, the most accurate passer in the history of the league. Why would you take him out? And I think it's the argument with a guy like Derek, if the game's going well, like, you can't, it's always a pushback from both sides. Like, obviously, if you're Marcus Mariota and you're dressed up, you want to play as much as possible. But if you're Derek, you wouldn't ever want to come out because you're going to feel you give yourself the best chance to succeed. And it's almost like you're in a weird spot because you're trying to win the game. You wouldn't root for Mariota to fuck up the play, but you would not want, like, the play to turn into him throwing like a 50-yard sweet pass that then would go viral and would get on the Red Zone channel and then really have everyone talking, right? So it's a hard balance, but he's playing. If I gave you the over under starts last time we talked, if I gave you over under snaps on offense week one at 3.5.
I might go under. I might go like 2 or 3 snaps, right? I mean, 3 snaps doesn't sound like enough, and then you start getting into the game and you see how things unfold. And so I'd probably go under on 3. I definitely think we're going to see him, though.
You wouldn't feel good about that, though, right? To me, wouldn't you say like 3
well, it depends.
to 5?
What, does Gruden think I'm going to give him a series? Is that how he's thinking? Or is he
Well,
thinking
I'd say
more
if
like
he's giving him a series, that's weird, right?
That'd be very weird. But again, I think because we don't have a preseason, weird stuff's going to happen. And here's the other thing. Unlike Breeze and Taysom Hill, like, the argument with that is always, well, what's better? We all know Breeze throwing the football is better than Taysom Hill throwing the football. Is Taysom Hill, with the element of surprise, better than Breeze throwing the football? I think most people would say no. And Sean Payton would say, well, some of this is about setting up something else. So it's not just about that individual play. These are complementary players, and we'll use them in a complementary way. Like you talked about the last time does Marcus Mariota do anything that Derek Carr isn't physically capable of doing? I mean, you would argue he's just a better runner. But yeah. Derek's like, if you wanted to start just running Derek, he's athletic enough to do some of that stuff.
But Derek does not run. It's not something he's comfortable doing. Where Mariota has been.
Mariota is your backup quarterback.
Yeah.
It's also the argument, why isn't Taysom, if Taysom's so much better than, if Taysom's a starting level quarterback, which we don't think he is, but if he is, then why isn't he the backup? Why is Teddy the backup? Why was Teddy the backup, right? It's like, unlike that, Mariota, so we're going to sprinkle him in a couple plays.
Because when Drew went down, they needed Teddy Bridgewater to be the full-time starter,
which
right?
to me was such an argument against why would Taysom Hill be this like highly sought after free agent. He's not a quarterback. He doesn't throw the football.
Well, I think he has 6 career passes, guy.
So, but Mariota is the backup quarterback, right? So how much are you willing to sprinkle him in running the football? You're also saying I'm putting my backup quarterback at risk here, even though I think my starter's good enough to remain my starter.
I'd say a financial risk too, right? If he got hurt doing the plug-and plays of just we gave him these 2 plays where Derek's still healthy and you were to lose your $7.5 million backup while he was just, have his 3 snaps a game, that'd be a pretty big that would hurt.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That would really hurt. So that's why Teddy Bridgewater, I'm sure he'd tell you, like, he's just the backup quarterback. Now, it was more black and white there because Teddy's not a runner, right? There is an element here of I'm throwing a different pitch. Like, he does bring a Taysom Hill element of Taysom runs, and he turns into, like, this running back / like H-back.
Right.
Where Mariota, well, he's not an H-back, but he is like an athlete, right? I mean, if I just asked the casual NFL fan, Marcus Mariota, what's the first thing you think about? I think most of them would say, like, oh, runner. Right? Athlete, runner, spread quarterback.
Yeah.
Just like that's what he even though in theory he was drafted and the hype was he was this great passer, and you always push back, watched him a ton, and I think most people probably listen to this podcast, watch a lot of Oregon games. But if you weren't super locked in, you would just look at the numbers, they were really good. He would miss a lot of wide open guys. Like, he was not like Baker Mayfield coming out of college was a pinpoint passer, right? Burrow last year, pinpoint passer. Tua, pinpoint passer. I'd say Herbert and him were like Herbert gets nitpicked a little bit, like, he's a little sporadic. I think Marcus Mariota was the same. Herbert's just like the bigger, stronger version of Mariota, kind of. They really were more similar. Isn't it weird how you get labeled? Like, Mariota was viewed as like Steve Young and Herbert was viewed more as like this project, but I think Herbert was a better prospect coming out than Mariota. I really do, looking back, think Herbert just big picture prospect, when you factor in bigger arm, more to work with, more physical.
The difference.
I've met Marcus a couple times. He's taller than you think. That's a sneaky thing with NFL quarterbacks.
Mariota, yeah.
I didn't know Mariota was 6'4.5". He's huge, but he is thin.
Herbert's
He's not
massive. I don't think Herbert is humongous.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I think Herbert's a better prospect.
But I think part of that, part of that was that Marcus's hype was built off of production, right? Like, he won a Heisman. He went to the college football. He went to the national championship game, right? Like that's part of why it was.
Too, I think, for West Coast players, because you're not in the and this is always the thing Pac-12 people always fight, right? Like, we're not in the conversation enough. So when you become Liner, Reggie Bush, or Mariota, you feel like even more hyped, right? Like Burrow or Tua or Cam. They are college football. But like when the West Coast guy gets to throw his hat in the ring, it feels like it gets to be doubled down, because sometimes, typically that landscape, right, of the South and the Midwest don't always talk about us out here. So Mariota was getting talked about, or even McCaffrey. They become kind of like a superstar. Reggie and Leinart were for sure, right? We're typically like Deshaun Watson or Cam Newton, like those guys just are the superstars of college football. When it happens to our guy out here, and Mariota really, I'd say, benefited and also kind of got dinged for this big picture, and it turned like dinged in the sense of like, why didn't he live up to hype in the pros? Because he actually wasn't as good as you guys made him out to be. He just wasn't. Like, Jameis was much more of a prototypical, and you just watch him play. Like, Jameis is dramatically better than Mariota, right? And it's not like Jameis is now a backup, but I don't even think currently like they have much in common. And the irony is Mariota makes more than Jameis this year, but like, Jameis throws picks, but he's just a better player.
Well, but it also turned out like Gruden just you go back to that Hard Knocks, Gruden like
would the Bucs have gone 7-9 with Mariota?
No.
Yeah.
Asking him to throw as much as Bruce Arians asked Jameis to throw.
Could not have done it, right?
No. Yeah. All right, let us know what you think of this. What will we see early week 1, week 2 from Mariota down in the comments below?
Like the video.